Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of Halftime Talk. I'm joined by Laury Haytayan, MENA Director of the Natural Resource Governance Institute, sitting in Beirut, Lebanon. Welcome, Laury.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. Thank you all for listening in.
Well, Laury, just to kick straight into it, in the last few days, we've had even more headlines out of Beirut that Lebanon now has the highest gasoline prices in the world. It's a long road to how we got here, but maybe you can just give us a quick summary of the last month or so as to how Lebanon has arrived with sort of limited availability of fuel and electricity.
So, Sean, everybody's talking about this problem of shortage of gasoline or diesel or even the fuel for electricity. But I wouldn't focus on that as much as focusing on the real reasons of why we are here in today. And this is because of the political class that has been mismanaging this country since 1990, since after the war in Lebanon. And unfortunately, today we feel that we are at war again, but this is like man-made, locally made war where the political class is battling the citizens and where the political class is really in fight and at war with its citizens. And this is what we're seeing. The gasoline crisis and the diesel crisis, the fuel crisis, it's all because of the shortages of dollars in the country, right? And why are we short on dollars in the country? It's because someone has taken all these dollars from the country. And for us, it's very clear who has done that. So this political class has been using the state and the state money as their own money, where they were trying to, within the procurement, for instance, they were always having these shady procurements that were not transparent, not competitive, where all their friends and the friends of friends used to take all these big, let's say, projects in the country where everything was divided on sectarian lines, and they were dividing the pie. The corruption that existed in the state. All of that made it so difficult to have really direct investments in the country for investors to invest in the country, because it was so difficult and so corrupt to do business. So all of that made that money was not coming in the country. Money was going out of the country because we export almost everything. We don't have anything. We don't have much local products. And it made that even the banking sector, where people used to trust the banking sector in the country, used to put their money in the country, they stopped doing that. The countries like the Gulf countries, where they used to support Lebanon, refused to put back money in the country because they were seeing, like, politically there were deterioration, economically. So all of that led to shortages of dollars. When you don't have shortages of dollars, you can't buy products.
You could be talking about any country in the Middle East, sadly, over the last number of decades, and in other countries, your neighboring Syria, in other countries, Egypt, Tunisia, we saw the Arab Spring sweep in, to a great extent unsuccessfully, although with some initial success in overturning these corrupt regimes. But we haven't seen Lebanon sort of demonstrate an Arab Spring momentum to clear out this corrupt class. Why is that, and what would it take?
Look, it takes patience, perseverance, and it takes really loving this country and not losing hope. In 2005, the Lebanese people were really strong enough to take out the Syrian occupation. And the Syrians left the country in 2005. Now in 2020 or 2021, 15 years later, we have this political class that inherited the corruption and bad governance from the Syrians and continued with it. So now this is the time again. It has been, there were different moments in time where people were revolting in this country. The last one was in 2019 with the 17 October revolution, where people were revolting against this political class. And today this revolution is continuing in different forms. So this is a continuous battle for the freedom of the people. And definitely we are at a crossroad where you have the sectarian regime, which is very strong in the country, who is trying to maintain power. And you have the other side, the secular people, the other Lebanese that want to really get out of the sectarian regime, which is a sectarian, corrupt regime. So it's not preserving the diversity in the country. On the contrary, they're preserving their own interest and the political, economic, business interests that they had forged for years. And they want to stay in power. And the others on the side, we the people are fed up with this system, and we are fighting to take back, not to build, not even to take back, to build a new country where everyone is equal in front of a law that respects everyone, a country where business is possible to do, a country where you can, as a private company, come in and do business. And it's not all about the monopolies that exist here today that are protected by the political class. So this is what we are facing today. So it does take a lot of effort. It does take a lot of love for this country and not losing hope. It's not easy, but it's doable.
If you look at the current sort of immediate news of the last few days or so, we're seeing obviously there is the fuel shortage and the ability without fuel, you cannot generate electricity in Lebanon. And we've seen Iran come to the fore with bringing some cargoes of fuel, but we are not seeing a corresponding cargo from France, which is a strong ally of Lebanon in recent decades, or Saudi Arabia. Why are they not coming forward with sort of help and these large tankers of fuel, and Iran is? What's your interpretation of the global relationship and view to Lebanon at this moment?
So let me tell you how the system works in Lebanon, okay? So the gasoline sector is a private sector led. And the diesel, most of it, 70% of it is privately led, okay? And the rest, 30%, is the government imports these products. The fuel for electricity is completely in the hands of the government. They provide the fuel for the Électricité du Liban, which is the public utility. So this is the situation. So when the private sector needs to buy this, they are stuck with two things, like because of non-fixed rates of foreign exchange rates, and there is the subsidy that the government and the central bank are imposing. So therefore, any private sector that needs to buy, to bring in the shipments of gasoline or of diesel, they need to bypass the central bank, who's the only owner of the dollars and who is subsidizing these products. And so they need to have the letter of credit or guarantee from the central bank to be able to offload the shipments and to agree with them on a specific foreign exchange rate. So today we have so many exchange rates that is completely becoming crazy for the Lebanese to understand. Every sector has its own foreign exchange rate, imagine. So this is the problem with the private sector. They are suffering, they're not able to get a hold of the dollars, and they are getting difficulties with the foreign exchange rate and how to price the product in the country. So this is the reality of what we have. It's not that we are under siege or under blockade, and the international community is not helping Lebanon by sending the shipments. Shipments could arrive, but we don't have the dollars, and we have different foreign exchanges. This is the main problem. So therefore, what the Iranian shipment means is like there is a certain political party, which is Hezbollah, which is known for its affiliation with Iran. And this is not a secret. Even them, the leaders, go out on TV and say that our money, our food, our clothes, our everything is paid from Iran. So they are bringing in this shipment without going through the central bank, without going through the government until now. So what's happening, it's like we know that there are certain businessmen that have paid for this shipment to arrive to Beirut, and it will arrive. And we don't know even if it arrives, if it's going to arrive to the port of Beirut, to the legitimate ports or the entry points in Beirut, and how this product will be used in the country, like on what prices. So then are you going to end up having Iranian gasoline price at a certain price, and then you have the others, and then you will create more of a clash and more of the division in the country. So this is the reality that we are facing. They have created, so this political class, most of the political class, with the protection of Hezbollah, have created the narrative that we are under siege and we are under the blockade, and the international community led by the US is fighting us, and they're waging an economic war on us. They have built that narrative, and they have made their people believe in that, so that today, when they're saying that we are breaking the narrative, and that we are breaking the siege, and this is how we're bringing the Iranian shipment, to make people believe that this is really an act of resistance, and we are breaking the siege, when there is no siege. The only siege that exists today, to tell you frankly, Sean, is that the international community is not ready anymore to give money to this political class, because they are not willing to do the reforms that had been requested from them for years. In 2018, this was the last time where the French initiative, or you remember when they went to Paris and the Cedre agreement, where they told them that we can give you up to $11 billion for infrastructure to reviving the economy, but they are conditional. You need to do reforms. At the same time, we need to monitor the money to make sure that the money is going to the right place. They refuse to do reforms. They refuse to be monitored for the money, because they don't want anyone to monitor the money that comes into the country, because they want to use it between themselves and the invested interest that exists and their people. So this is the idea with the Iranian shipment. Will it solve the problem of gasoline or diesel in the country? It will not solve it, because at the end of the day, we're talking about one shipment, 2 or 3 shipments. It depends. Like every day, we're hearing about new shipments. But a small number of businessmen cannot cover for 10 companies that are the companies that bring in the shipments to Lebanon. So a bunch of men cannot cover for 10 companies and the market share for 10 companies. So therefore, what is happening today is like just imposing on Lebanon, getting this Iranian gasoline or Iranian diesel. And that means that the Iranians, through Hezbollah, want a share in the Lebanese market. This is how I see it. I don't see it as a rescue plan. I don't see it as a savior act or a resistance act. I just see
we've also had in recent, obviously over the structure of years, Lebanon has been, as you mentioned, there was the World Bank and the IMF and other international multilateral agencies that lent money to Lebanon in the recent decade. But we also had an economic structure heavily dependent on remittances. There are hundreds of thousands and millions of Lebanese working around the world, incredibly skilled and successful in what they're doing, and they were always remitting money home to family and to investment and so forth. What is the state of that revenue stream, so critical to Lebanon and many countries? The Philippines heavily depend on it, India heavily dependent on remittances. What's happening to Lebanese remittances?
So what's happening now, it's like people living abroad are sending directly money to these OMT, Western Union, to their people, and not through the banks anymore, and not putting their money in the bank, because whatever money was put in the bank is lost today. So that support continues. But again, like with the COVID situation, there were like really difficulties all over the world. So even the money that was supposed to come in is less. But at least this is how many people in the country today are able to survive, because of these couple of dollars that are coming directly to them. Or else it would have been a real disaster, because with the Lebanese lira has lost 90%, 95% of its value. The dollars that you had in the banks, you cannot take them out anymore. And now we talk about fresh money, that everything that comes, the new dollars that come in, you can take them in dollars. Your savings in dollars are lost. If you want to take them out,
what was the date on this new dollars before and after? So the old dollars are now worthless. The new dollars are protected. What was the date of that?
If I'm not mistaken, it was like by mid-2020 that the fresh dollar policy was taken by the central bank. So that people that would send money, or the people that work and get paid in dollars and that come from abroad, so that this is qualified as fresh dollars, so you can take them out as dollars. The rest, whatever you had before that, it's like just now not fresh enough to give it to you, and you can just take it out from the bank through the foreign exchange rate that had been useless for now. It's $3,900 for Lebanese lira for $1, when the market is at 20,000 for $1. So imagine like there on every possible on every time there is the possibility for them to steal people's money, they're doing that. They are unwilling to do reforms. And the World Bank even said it when they were describing the situation in the country. They said deliberate inaction. And this is in the World Bank reports. It's not just someone that is saying it sitting in a coffee shop and doing the coffee shop analysis. This is the World Bank saying that there is deliberate inaction from the political parties and political class not to do any kind of reform. They refuse to do the capital control law at the parliament when money was going out and other people were not able to cash in their money that were in the bank. They are refusing to do the forensic audit that is required. They are refusing to take any action that would help to put us on the road to reform. You know, they are refusing to that. They are sabotaging every solution that is possible, even when the government, the Hassan Diab government, was trying to put a plan for recovery, you know, and to talk to the IMF to come up with a deal. The parliament itself sabotaged that thing. Imagine.
What is the immediate consequence now in daily life? Do you have electricity? Can your kids go to school? Can you get medicine? What is the daily kind of consequence of this failed management by the political class?
So first of all, you need gasoline. You have queues that last for 4 or 5 hours. And if you're lucky, you can get gasoline for your car, to fill out your car, to be able to take your kids to school or even to go to work. So this is making it difficult. So then you can say, oh, thank God for COVID, because they taught us how to work from home. Working from home becomes another challenge because you don't have enough diesel in the country. So therefore, the generators, the private generators that we relied on when we didn't have electricity from the public utility, these generators now have cuts and very organized cuts. And in every region is different. So for us, where I live, it's like every 2 hours we have a cut. And this is why last week I couldn't be with you, because from 8 till 10, I have electricity cut, complete cut. Imagine in 2021, we are living in a city where you don't have electricity at all. So therefore, automatically, you don't have internet. So even this working from home or schooling from home is becoming really difficult because you have hours where you don't have electricity, therefore you don't have internet. So this is what we're living in 2021. Hospitals have the same problem with electricity and with the generators. So they are not able to function. Plus, what we are seeing is like medication is scarce in the country. And unfortunately, we're seeing that a lot of businessmen are hiding these medications because they bought it on a subsidized price, and they want to sell it once the subsidy is removed, because every day they are telling us that the subsidies will be removed because the central bank doesn't have enough money to subsidize. So actually what we are seeing, it's like really every day is a survival day in Lebanon. We are trying to survive. We are on survival mode. And unfortunately, what we are seeing that a lot of people are trying to escape the country. In the health sector, we know that a lot of doctors and nurses are leaving the health sector in Lebanon and going abroad for opportunities. The banking sector, definitely. And the education sector as well. So all of these sectors, people are leaving it. And education, we're talking about schools and universities. So all of that will have an impact on the future of the country, because people are leaving the country. Good people are leaving the country that are fed up from that. They don't want to keep on surviving. And it's so hard for people my age, because we were the generation of the war. Like we were kids when when the war was on. In 1990, I was 15, 16, 17-year-old. And then now we have kids and we're going through the same situation. I cannot send my kids to school. Before, I used not to go to school because we had bombs. Today, I cannot send them to school because either I don't have gasoline or there is no electricity at school. So they prefer not to send the kids to school. So we're living. So it's so hard. Our generation is the generation that is really fed up because history is repeating itself. They don't want their kids to live the same way that we used to live. Not having electricity, not having food, not having crying for bread, staying for hours in queues for bread, for gasoline. All of these are the signs of war that we used to live and now we're going through. That's why a lot of people my age are leaving. They're taking their kids with them. And a lot of young kids, 17, 18, 20, 25, they're leaving the country. So who is left in the country? And what impact this will have on the future of the country? It's a serious question.
And is there
the future
anything,
doesn't look bright.
Is there anything in the equation, and we need to wrap up on this question, that is pointing towards a solution? New government forming, the World Bank indicating, is there anything there that is pointing to the possible light at the end of this very dark tunnel?
Look, all the reports are saying the recovery might take 10 to 12 years. But the question is like, when are we going to start with the recovery? There is no date for recovery. We've wasted 2 years, and not to add on the 30 years of mismanagement, but for 2 years, a country that is going through the severe crisis that had been, again, by the World Bank qualified as the worst third or among top 10, top 3 economic crisis since 1850s, since the 1850s. This is qualified as the top crisis, and nobody's doing anything. The Beirut blast is qualified as the third non-nuclear explosion. People have nothing. People lost their money, lost their loved ones, they lost the sense of security, all of that, and they're doing nothing. The GDP dropped from $55 billion to 33. And what are we doing? And today it's even worse. Like that was in 2020, 2021, it's worse. So where are we going with that? That political class is doing nothing to change this situation. On the contrary, they are using it in their favor, and some are using it to impose a new system in the country, a new political system. So they see it, the political class is seeing it as an opportunity for them to survive and to change the political system, and the people are lost hope completely. And as I said, many are leaving the country, and every day we see that friends of ours, kids of our friends are all leaving the country. So it is no light at the end of the tunnel with this political class, unfortunately. And I can say it with certainty, these people, as long as they're in power, there is no hope for the country. So
well, it is a very challenging time. My own in-laws, father and mother-in-law, now elderly and are forced into emigration themselves for the second or third time, as the need for healthcare is obviously critical for elderly people, and they find themselves looking at having to flee to London. Laury, Haytayan, MENA Director, Natural Resource Governance Institute. There's a lot to discuss on this topic. We didn't even mention OPEC, which is meeting tomorrow. Seems somewhat irrelevant when you're dealing with such primary challenges as electricity, medicine, and transport. Laury, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.